The hall smelled of roses and champagne, glittering beneath chandeliers worth more than I had ever earned. 500 guests filled the seats, their voices swelling like a storm as I walked toward the altar in my white dress, veil brushing my shoulders. For a fleeting moment, I thought, just maybe, this day could belong to me. Then Rachel made her move. My sister sat at the front in a silver gown brighter than mine, her curls perfect, her posture regal like she was the bride. She leaned forward, her words dipped in sugar but sharpened with venom. Maybe he'll finally see your second choice once you open your mouth in front of all these people. My stomach knotted. I gripped my bouquet and whispered, "Not today, Rachel. This isn't about you." Her smirk widened. She raised her voice just enough for the crowd to hear. "Dad, did you hear that? She thinks she can talk back to me on her own wedding day." Chairs shifted. Murmurs spread. My father's chair scraped the floor, his footsteps pounding toward me. His hand struck before I could breathe. Gasps rippled through the hall as my bouquet slipped from my grasp, petals scattering across polished marble. His fist followed, white-hot pain exploding across my cheekbone. I staggered, catching the cake table, nearly knocking it over as laughter trickled through the crowd. "You think you're better than your sister?" he roared, spit hitting my skin, his rage amplified through the microphones. "Talk back again, and I'll break you in front of everyone." The world spun. Blood filled my mouth. Another blow knocked me sideways, my veil tearing, my crown clattering across the floor. And then came my mother's voice, sharp, merciless. She raised her glass, her words echoing through the hall. "Bow to your sister," she sneered, "or crawl out like a dog. Those are your choices." The room erupted. Some laughed, others clapped uneasily, unsure if it was cruelty or spectacle. I turned to Ethan, my fiancé, frozen at the altar. His face was pale, his fists clenched, but he did nothing. He said nothing. He let me bleed under 500 watchful eyes. Rachel rose slowly, her silver gown gleaming. She stepped toward me, bent down, and whispered so only I could hear. "You'll never be more than the shadow I allow you to be. This is my wedding now." Her words cut deeper than any blow. I wanted to scream, to tear the crown from her head, to set fire to her arrogance, but I stayed still, my pride shaking beneath the weight of humiliation. The laughter, the whispers, the clinking glasses, they burned into me like fire. I wiped my cheek with the back of my hand, straightened the torn veil, and stared at the ground where my tiara lay in pieces. My father grinned, my mother raised her glass. Rachel basked in the glow of attention she had stolen. They thought I was broken, but I wasn't. As I stood there, humiliated before 500 eyes, something shifted inside me. I didn't cry, I didn't beg, I let silence turn into steel. If they wanted me to crawl, I would make sure the day came when they crawled instead. I don't remember leaving the hall. One moment I was standing on stage with swollen cheeks and a shredded veil, 500 eyes burning holes through me. The next, I was outside in the cold, heels dragging against the pavement, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses echoing behind me. I waited for Ethan. I thought maybe he would follow, maybe he'd take my hand, tell me none of it mattered, but he didn't. Through the glass doors, I saw him still by the altar, shaking his head while my parents toasted with wine. My fiancé had chosen silence over me. By morning, the internet had done its work. Videos of my father striking me spread through the guests' chats like wildfire. Some captioned them unbelievable, others wrote, "She deserved it." A flood of laughing emojis followed. My humiliation had become their entertainment. I stayed in my apartment with the blinds drawn. My cheek turned purple, my eye darkened, my ribs ached with every breath, but worse than the bruises was the silence. No call from my mother, no text from Rachel, not a single word of apology. On the third day, my phone buzzed. "Rachel, just 5 words. Hope you practiced crawling, sis." I let the phone fall onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. Rage spread through me like acid. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. So I went back. When I stepped into my parents' house, the smell of coffee and perfume greeted me. Mom sat at the dining table, flipping through a magazine, her crimson nails tapping the glass. She looked up, her eyes narrowing. "Well," she said smoothly, "look who came crawling home. You should have stayed gone. At least then you wouldn't have embarrassed us further." Rachel leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone, her silver bracelet catching the morning light. "Oh, good, you're here," she said, grinning. "Now I can tell you in person you gave the best wedding speech ever. Dad's fist said everything we've always wanted to." My throat tightened. A scream clawed its way up, but I forced silence over it. Then Dad appeared, shirt half-buttoned, reeking of whiskey though the sun had barely risen. His grin was wide and cruel. Still walking upright. "Heh," he chuckled. "After what I taught you, I figured you'd stay on your knees where you belong." The words sliced deep, but instead of bleeding, I froze. Something inside me went cold, like ice crawling through my veins. I didn't argue, I didn't cry, I gave them nothing. Quietly, I climbed the stairs. My old room hadn't changed, dust on the dresser, faded wallpaper, the same cracked mirror that had once reflected a little girl starving for love. I sat on the bed, trembling, their laughter downstairs echoing in my skull, replaying the wedding stage over and over. That's when it hit me, they weren't going to stop, not after one night, not after one humiliation. My pain had become their celebration, they would keep feasting on it until there was nothing left of me. So the silence hardened, the tears dried, and the plan began to take form. It wasn't about escape, it wasn't about Ethan, it was about something else, something that would cut deeper than fists, louder than sneers. If they thought I would crawl, they were about to learn what it felt like when the dog they mocked finally bared its teeth. 2 months later, Rachel announced her victory party, not just a birthday, not just a dinner, she called it the celebration of being the true daughter of the family. My parents beamed with pride, inviting the entire wedding guest list again, erasing me one more time. I stayed quiet. They thought I was broken, hiding, humiliated, but silence is dangerous when it hardens into planning. On the night of the party, I walked in uninvited. The room froze, music faltered, Rachel's champagne glass stilled midair, Dad's jaw locked, Mom's smile vanished. I didn't look at them, I clapped my hands once, sharp, commanding. The sound cracked through the hall. "Since you all enjoyed a show at my wedding," I said, my voice steady, "I thought you'd like an encore." Gasps rippled through the guests. I stepped onto the stage, heels striking the polished wood, and set down a small laptop. The projector screen flared to life. The first slide appeared, my father's bank transfers, money siphoned from his company into secret accounts. Gasps, whispers, uneasy shifting in seats. Click, next slide, emails arrogant, cruel, bragging about fraud, mocking colleagues. The man once praised for his honor was stripped bare in front of his peers. Dad charged toward me, face red, veins bulging. I raised my hand. "Not yet, your turn comes later." Click, next slide. The screen lit up with Rachel's secrets, school reports buried for years, cheating, bullying, stealing answers, bribing teachers, letters my parents had hidden to protect her. Rachel's face shattered, her champagne glass slipping from her hand. "That's a lie," she screamed, but her voice cracked under the weight of truth. Then came the recording, the one I'd captured at the wedding, burned into my memory. Dad's roar thundered through the speakers, "You're the family shame." Mom's venom followed, "Bow to your sister or crawl out like a dog." And Rachel's whisper, dripping with triumph, "This is my wedding now." The hall froze. Guests who had laughed that night shifted uneasily, shame creeping across their faces. Some looked disgusted, others bowed their heads. At the back, Ethan's parents stood and walked out without a word, dragging him with them. He didn't even glance my way. Dad lunged again, but nothing could silence me now. "You called me a dog," I said, my voice like ice, "but dogs bite back, and tonight you bow." I let the microphone fall, the crash echoed like a verdict. Then I walked down the aisle, the crowd parting as whispers rippled, not about me, but about them. Behind me, Chaos erupted, Rachel sobbing, mascara streaking down her cheeks, Mom clutching Dad's arm, begging him to stop the bleeding, Dad shouting, red-faced, powerless, as judgment filled the room. Their empire of lies collapsed in the same kind of hall where they once forced me to crawl. I pushed open the doors and stepped into the cold night air without looking back. Months ago, my tiara had shattered on the floor. Tonight, it was their crowns that broke. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't on my knees. They were.